Hello and welcome everyone. Good to see you. Welcome back. We're here for day 2 of 2 with Danii. We're going to be doing some more illustration. Before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone that we do have a full day of streams coming up. If you want to see the entire schedule, you can scroll down below and you'll see the schedule tab and it'll show everything that's coming up next. We're also kicking off with the new daily creative challenges this week. Yesterday was the welcome stream for all of them, but today is the first challenge. So if you just saw the stream with Voodoo Val, for Photoshop, you can join those challenges and you can register for them on the challenges page. You can also check out the Discords for each community. We also have XD and Illustrator daily creative challenges. I also wanted to let you guys know that we're going to be doing an artist spotlight about an hour and a half or so into the stream. So definitely stay tuned and check that out. Also, hello to everyone in the chat. Good to see you. Welcome back. I see Val and Cody in there. Umacorn, Megan, General Kenobi, Robert. What's up, everyone? Welcome on in. Welcome back if you were here yesterday. Like I said, we are here with Danii. Danii, if anyone's new to your work or new to seeing you, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, and what you're going to be working on today.
Hi, my name is Danii. I am a freelance illustrator based in Hamburg, Germany. And yeah, I mainly work on editorial and packaging illustrations. And yesterday we started out with a character design sketch and to work on a kaleidoscope portrait. I redefined a bit of my work, definitely. Speaking of perfectionism, we talked about yesterday, I mean, it kicked in and I had to refine a bit, but I literally left it like it was. I just made it a bit more clean for me to have it easier to vectorize eventually. Yeah, this is what we did yesterday. It's a girl with long hair, and we already also decided on a color palette. I'm going to be using one of my older traditional artwork, which I put into Photoshop and edited, so I get a nice palette out of that. I hope you still like it, or everyone who's new likes it also. And yeah, I also added a maple leaf because we didn't have the time yesterday anymore, and put some more diamonds here. And yeah, just checked if everything is even and looks good.
Yeah, it's looking great.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Also, hey to Ivan in the chat, Sean, Kirti, I see Vikram, Marcuccio, Noor, good to see you, everyone. Welcome back. Yeah, I think this is pretty much where you left it yesterday, you said, right? You did a little bit of cleaning up with the background pattern.
Yeah, and I reworked her face a little bit because
okay.
Yeah, it was all right, but I wasn't 100% happy with it. We talked about perfectionism yesterday, so it totally kicked in. I had to do some more. I wanted her to look a bit more happy and calm and relaxed. She was still, I kind of felt like she was a bit angry with me. So yeah,
it's funny, a lot of times tweaking the eyebrows or the facial features ever so slightly can make such a big difference.
Definitely, it's such a difference. And I also decided to change up the pattern which I had on the shirt, because when I cleaned up the background and all the kaleidoscope elements, I felt like it was maybe a little bit too much, and decided to have a placement print instead with the cactus and the banana. I hope everyone is all right with that decision.
You still have the cactus and banana. I like it. I think it works well because it kind of contrasts the heavy information of the background pattern. It's like a nice little point of rest a bit more.
Yeah, maybe it was a little bit too much, I felt. Even though usually I like to overdo it.
Yeah, I mean, that works. You can always ease back. It's always fun to kind of go nuts with the design and just take things away if you need to.
Yeah, I just read in the chat that Noor said now she is in love. I think, yeah, that kind of makes sense. She really looks happy and quite thinking about somebody.
Yeah, I really do like what you did with the facial expression. It is kind of this sort of lost in thought type of look, which adds a lot. I think if I ever add or go into perfectionism too much. I think like the focal point, like the face, is a good place to do it.
Well, so now I put the sketch a bit more on the transparent side and multiply so that it's always on top so we can see this through while working on it.
And today you're doing Illustrator, correct? Yesterday was Fresco.
Exactly. Yeah. Illustrator today. Yeah. I think it's great that it's now available on the iPad. It really makes so much sense for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really nice if you can kind of do your whole process mobily in that way. Anika says, I like how the eye looks in the pattern. Yeah, that was really fun yesterday. Kind of everyone was calling out different patterns and shapes we could use. I just saw the maple leaf in the top circle. Was that there yesterday?
No, I edited because we didn't have the time yesterday anymore, but I remembered that it was mentioned in the chat. So I wanted to include it as well because it was such a fitting thing also because I remember like the 4 leaves clover and the heart and were literally all my tattoos as well, which was like
yeah,
I think you said something like uncanny. I was like, oh yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, it's funny. People were calling them out.
Mm-hmm.
Karina, welcome on in. Good to see you. And of course, if anyone has any questions for Danii, definitely let us know. I'll be checking the chat so I can always relay them to her. And I see that you went with that color palette that we were talking about yesterday. I think that was the number 1. Is that the one you're using?
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice.
I decided to go for one of the brighter pinks here because I want to keep it light usually. So I'm going to try first the lighter version of the pink. If you guys have any suggestions what color I should use next, just let me know.
When you go into these, do you ever kind of think of a accent color or focal point? Do you use color in the way where you're like wanting a certain point to really stand out among the rest of the colors?
I think that would be the goal, but sometimes with so many elements, it might reveal in the end, probably. Because, of course, I'm trying to do that, especially because now I'm going to put like a little bit darker background to highlight the girl. But yeah, sometimes I have to do many changes afterwards to like find the final color combinations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And I always have to make sure that I close the layers because I want to make sure to not move anything around too much.
Oh, locking the layers.
Yeah, that's for me the most important thing. Otherwise because when I zoom in that much, I start moving the layers without even realizing it. So I have to make sure to always lock everything.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I definitely try to get in the habit of locking most of the layers that I'm not using because it always happens where I accidentally select another one and then I start painting on the wrong layer. I think everyone has been there.
Yeah, that happened to me quite a few times.
Yep.
And then like 2 hours in, you're like, oh no.
Oh my. Yeah. If you don't catch it at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the worst. I've had several times on stream where I'm like, no, like I just realize it and I just have this moment of like, oh man, I've been painting on this layer for like 10 minutes. So that's kind of what led to it. I was like, well, if I just lock every layer I'm not using, I can't accidentally do that.
That's why I'm training to do that as well. I think it's so important because otherwise I'm just gonna like, paint on the wrong layer all the time.
Yeah, I think we can all relate. Also, Rebecca in chat says, I didn't know anything about capture until Danii mentioned it yesterday. I spent 45 minutes taking photos and getting color palettes yesterday after the stream ended. So much fun. That's awesome.
Perfect. So happy. to hear that. And I love it too. It's the best.
Yeah, I think being able to kind of just choose color palettes from, from life or things that inspire you that you see is a really cool idea. I need to actually try that more myself.
So maybe I should go with like, check out how the green looks.
Rebecca says, awesome. I'm excited to use it more. Yeah. Yeah, I need to try that out sometime because the way I do my colors is really just like throwing them down, seeing what looks cool. But I think when you do that, you can get into the habit of kind of doing things the same way you always have or using the same colors you always have. So I think anytime you can pull inspiration from, things that you see out and about that kind of catch your attention is a really great idea.
I think so too. And the funniest thing is that I think I discovered it in an Australian Adobe stream. One of the artists was working in the stream, and I think it was Bianca Beers or something. I think it was her, and she explained it and like talked about it and told everyone that's her method to do it. And I thought it's just genius. It's like, oh, this is so good.
Yeah, I've seen some people do some really cool things with like textures too, and just a lot of interesting kind of patterns and effects that you can get with that.
So maybe this could work out, but I have to check. I tried to put like all the different things into different groups to have it all separated to, in the end, rework easily and like change things up easily without like looking for the layer as much, because on the iPad you can't really like, I mean, I could probably, I could name it, but I don't know. I really like to keep it clean and sort it to be able to come back and have it more easy.
Do you often like organize your layers in that way with like naming and grouping and things like that?
It depends. On the iPad, I do that a lot, but when I'm working on my computer with Photoshop, no, I'm not doing it. Are you doing it?
I used to not at all. Like if you saw my PSD files from, I don't know, 5+ years ago, it's pretty horrid. But now I make a pretty, conscious effort to name my layers and to group them, but to do it before it gets out of control. Like once you have 30 layers that are all unnamed and not grouped, it's like too much of a chore to go and do it. But I usually try to do it from the get-go. I'm like, all right, new layer, this is my mask, this is my shadow layer, whatever it may be. So I'm much better about it now, but it's kind of necessary for my own sanity, I think.
Yeah, I should totally do it too. Yeah, but I always feel like it kind of destroys my workflow, so I tend to do it afterwards. I'm gonna have 100 layers, then I'm going through and sorting everything.
I think at 100 layers is when I give up. I'm like, all right, it is what it is. I'm just gonna let it be. But I think it's kind of, I don't know, when you do it enough, you find things that are helpful and they seem like they're worth the time. So there's a certain level of organization for me that is definitely worth it because it makes the later stages easier to navigate, I guess. But I like to merge layers too and keep things as simple as I can. Nor asks, are you painting with vector brushes exclusively?
No. Definitely not. Also with pixel brushes and Fresco, when I want to create textures and have a little bit of more structure and make it look more interesting. But when I work in Adobe Illustrator, of course, it's only vectorized. But
yeah, the tools in Illustrator really seem very useful for coloring quick when you're blocking in those big shapes of color in the beginning. Definitely seems helpful. A lot of times when I do it in Photoshop, if I'm like outlining a big area to color in, I'll kind of trace a line around it and fill it in. But it's really nice that you can block in these big sections so quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely making so much sense. I have to check though what's happening, why it's not black, what I put.
Sean and Uma Corner saying layer 3 copy, layer 3 copy. Yeah. I've been there many times.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, okay, it's that one. Whoa.
George says, Dani's #1 fan over here.
Yay!
Go get that awesome color palette rockin'. Yeah, I'm very excited to see the final result as well. I think this is like a really interesting stage is whenever you start blocking in the color, I think that does so much for the mood and like feel of the piece overall, because color can change the look and feel of something so dramatically.
And I also feel like that the palette is quite dreamy. Like it really fits the expression.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool to kind of take this picture where you have all these colors worked out, but you know, once you apply it to an image like this, it takes on a whole different feel to it. Anika says the pencil tool is the best. Yeah, it's great how
the absolute
quickly,
best.
like right there, that shirt, just in like seconds, pretty much blocked the whole thing out.
Yeah, I've been very unclean right now. Ooh. Yeah, but it makes so much sense. Afterwards, I always try to like get rid of a few points at least.
Oh, after you block it out, you try to clean up the
at least a
it.
little bit, like to have a bit less information and in the layers and make it a bit more proper kind of. But I also really like the more how can I say that, when it's a little bit more wobbly kind of, so it looks not too like stiff.
Has more of like a kind of a natural or organic feel to it. Yeah, when I've been doing my line work lately, I mean, I'm always kind of changing my process, but I purposely like doing really long lines with a single stroke. And there's a little bit of wobbliness that happens in that sometimes, but I like it. It's like done, if you do it in a controlled way, it has just more of like a organic feel to it. Viola says the palette is dreamy. Yeah, has a very interesting look to it, which fits the facial expression really well. So we were talking about your art background and education and everything a little bit yesterday, but I was curious if drawing is always something you've been doing since you were a kid, or did you kind of find this later on as an adult?
I really did it all my life. The funniest thing is in Germany, we have like little books we bring to school in first grade and second and third, I think also probably even the fourth. And where you put your name, what's your favorite subject in school, and what do you want to, what's your future profession, what you would like to become in the future. And I put artist already because I liked it so much. Then I kind of lost it a little bit because, I mean, we all know the stigma around being an artist, that people would probably tell you that it's hard to make money off of that, and that's happening only to a few chosen ones, and well, then I kind of stopped it for a little bit because I thought, oh, I have to concentrate on something else. And yeah, I came back to it
Oh,
because
okay.
yeah, I did my A levels in art and design because I liked it so much. But at this point, I thought I wanted to train as a graphic designer or something. But yeah, I didn't feel confident enough, to be honest. I always thought that I might not be good enough or that there's so many better people, so I shouldn't be applying yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, felt a bit, yeah, I don't know, not ready. And also, there was a time in my life that I was really sick and I had to stop and have a break for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that,
Was
hmm?
I was just gonna say, was there any sort of change or event that happened that kind of made you feel like this is something you could do? Was there a moment where that sort of switched?
Yeah, I think there was actually. I think it was also being sick, probably, because I
Mm.
had epileptic seizures and resisting out of a brain tumor, and it was quite a like difficult time. And I had surgery and felt much better afterwards, and I'm healthy now again. But I think this experience definitely showed me that life is short, and if I really love it, I should really go for it and
Mm.
don't waste the time on something else I'm not interested in. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, it's not always that easy, and it was quite a long way, to be honest. And it sounds much easier than it actually was, but it was all worth it. And yeah, I think that was definitely my learning to go after what I really want.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like a kind of a change of perspective moment for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Also, hello to Gus in the chat.
Hello.
Yeah, it's funny how when we're kids, a lot of us, I think people who do art now, did draw and stuff as kids, but it's kind of funny how as you grow a little bit older, sometimes a lot of that doubt affects that decision. We do it for fun and just because it's an enjoyable thing to do. We don't really think about it too much when we're kids, but sometimes the overthinking things kind of comes in later on and I think causes people to drop out of it a little bit. I didn't really find it again, art until I was an adult, but when I was very young, I drew quite a bit.
And when did you come back to it?
Sometime after high school when I was about 21, I drew when I was like, when I was a kid, and I probably stopped, I don't know, sometime around 10 years old. And yeah, I just didn't really do it for many, many years, and then sort of rediscovered art when I was 21. So kind of had to find my way back to it.
And how did it start it? Like,
Oh, like rediscovering it.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's not like really, most artist stories are like, I've always loved drawing and I've done it my whole life. Mine was more like, well, I was done with high school and I needed to figure out something to do with my life and I didn't know what that was. So I went to community college to figure out what it was. And then I kind of, through pursuing different interests, trying to find what that thing is that I would enjoy doing, I rediscovered art through that. And then I was kind of, I discovered this online art community called conceptart.org. And it was basically this moment where I realized if you just do anything a lot, you get really good at it, which sounds so obvious to me now. But back then I remember hearing a lot, the whole thing, like you're talented or, you either have it or you don't as an artist. And then I found this community where people pretty much catalog their entire progress from like year one to whatever year they were at, like 7, and you could see how much they improved just by practicing a lot. And it kind of flipped the switch in my head where it was like, oh yeah, that's pretty straightforward, that's easy, that's what I want to do. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of led to me picking it up again. Also, Manuel in chat says, I'm so glad our market has taken off and there are jobs for all of us. Yeah, it's really interesting because there's so many areas of creative design, so many areas of art. I mean, just within things that I like to do, illustration, there's so many different kind of ways you can pursue that. There's editorial art, there's freelance, and there's the animation industry, there's the video game industry. There's just so many places that need design, and that's not even talking about like graphic design. Pretty much every company needs branding and packaging and just identity design. So there's so many areas, if you're interested in art, so many areas you can kind of pursue that.
That's so true. And I'm so happy about that as well. Like I feel like especially like the past 2 years, it has been like increasing a lot. That everyone wants illustrations and people really like fall in love with it and see the value. I felt like what I had to deal with often is that when I told somebody what my profession is, then they were like, "Oh yeah, you're drawing a little bit for a hobby or what? Like, oh, is it fun? But can you make a living off of that?"
Yeah.
And now it's starting to change. It really changes now, and people get used to it. And also like to see it and see the value. That's really something awesome that happened, I think, in the past couple of years, finally.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like every product that you see, it had to be designed by someone, and there's just so much art and design that goes into creating things, marketing them, all that. And there's just so many different fields. So if you really kind of look out and, research and keep an eye out for what there is, there's definitely a lot of opportunities, which is great. When you decided that you wanted to do illustration in more of a professional sense, like this is something I actually want to pursue, did you know exactly kind of what industry or what type of jobs you were interested in, or is it something you had to discover slowly?
I discovered slowly, definitely, because I always went from fashion to textile design to finally illustration more, and also licensing products and these kind of things. And it definitely developed. I think also it was because I never, like, how can I say that? I didn't allow myself to dream big, I think. I still felt like, oh, I can't dream this big. I'm not good enough. This is only for the best of the best. And yeah, with time, I started to feel more confident and also allowed myself to dream big. I mean, some stuff might not ever be happening, but like some does, and it does already. And yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely relate. I think a lot of times, like I always have these big, dreams and goals that I really want to pursue, but I feel like whenever I tell people about them, I have to like play it down a little bit, be like, I know this is, this is an ambitious goal. I'm not saying I'm going to get this right away, but I kind of want to do this. So I think it's important to allow yourself to, to really dream as big as you want. And I think as you do something more, whether it's illustration or any craft, you can kind of figure out, you get more context along the way, what it takes and what you would need to do to get there. So it's good to have
I also
something
think
worth pursuing.
I also think that having a goal makes it easier to find the way. Because if you're like running around, not really knowing where to go or what's your dream, then it's like super hard to actually pursue it. But in the moment you like envision it and you like decide what it's going to be, you actually can figure out the step which it will take to get it.
Absolutely. I think there's like a Alice in Wonderland quote that reminds me of. It's something like, if you don't know where you're going, any direction will do, something like that. So if you actually have a path and you kind of know what you're shooting for, or if you have a goal and you know what you're shooting for, that makes the path a lot more clear.
Yes. And that's something I definitely learned as well, because like I said earlier, I thought it's like, only for the best of the best and I'm not one of them, and then really like, no, I can do it. And combined with the learning and knowing that if I work hard and keep on exploring and developing my skills, then it's definitely a possibility that these things can happen.
Yeah, definitely. Do you consider yourself someone who is very like goal oriented and I'll use the word strategic in terms of like what you're trying to achieve and what you want, or has a lot of the journey for you kind of been finding it as you go?
I think it's the second one, more finding as I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, I have goals, but like if I would start being strategic about it, I think then it would be too, I don't know. I think there has to be room to like for the unexpected.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it kind of, you don't really know what's going to happen until you get there, and so you have to be pretty adaptable, I think, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, flexible and
Mm-hmm.
like able to adapt. I think that's like very important. Probably something, probably the most important,
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, and deal with the unexpected and like, especially being freelance.
yeah, certainly.
Like, you kind of have to be prepared for everything, kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point, because with freelance, I mean, if you're working in-house at a studio or something like that, you probably have a fairly solid idea of what you're going to be doing day to day, but freelance can fluctuate so much with, completely different jobs and opportunities that maybe you didn't foresee. Rebecca says, coming from a studio art background, I really want to do illustration as a job. Sometimes I don't think I have the right qualifications or wonder how to start. Do you have any kind of advice on that sort of situation?
Um, I mean, I don't have the right background either. I've studied fashion design, and I think nobody is checking out where you studied or what you've done. It's more like, uh, does your portfolio look good? Do you have a message? Is there a certain style a potential client might want to work with? I think there is like, you just have to work hard and develop, and yeah, I think that's the way it goes. Like, I started to work and show up and really show my work everywhere, even though when I thought it might not be the best or not good enough, or there's so many better people out there, it doesn't matter. Like, if you work hard and you keep on showing up, then eventually it's gonna happen. That's what
Yeah.
I think, at least. I don't
Yeah.
know. It might, yeah.
I mean, I think that showing up every day is like number one to me. I think
Mhm.
if you do anything every day for a long enough period of time, it just kind of happens. Like you're gonna get good at it. Things are gonna kind of come together. Um, but it's that consistency that I feel like anything I've ever pursued that I've actually done well or had any success with, it was just because I did it every day for a while.
That's true. Also, when I look at my stuff from a year ago, it's such a difference.
Oh yeah, that's a great feeling. I think. I know a lot of people have expressed that they're embarrassed with their old work. They'll be like, "Oh, don't look at that." But I'm always like that's the thing I'm the most proud of. If something from a year ago or 2 years ago like looks really bad, I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. That means I've gotten noticeably better." And that's always been the goal for me.
That's such a
So,
nice way to look at it. I think I could like use a little bit more of that. I think I'm sometimes being too hard to myself. I look back at my work and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? And it's all out there. I mean, it's all
yeah.
in the internet. If you Google my name, you'll find at least like 10 artworks. I wouldn't do it like that anymore, but it's
Yeah.
there. It's all right, but I'm not too happy about it.
I think it's important with anything that you're trying to improve at to kind of take a step back and look at what you've done. So, any sort of goals, maybe we've been doing it for a year or two or more. but sometimes you forget how far you've come. So if you just take a step back and look at your old stuff or where you were a year ago, a lot of times you surprise yourself and you're like, oh, okay, that's really cool. I've actually come a good way. Practice means progress. Exactly. It's always what I'm shooting for. I think that's a good, I don't know, tip or strategy just for not getting too discouraged when you look at other artists. Not really comparing yourself to, where they are and feeling like you should be there, but just comparing yourself to where you were maybe a month ago or a year ago and watching yourself grow, because everyone's at their, their own pace, kind of on their own path. But I think that's a good way to not get too like discouraged, is if you're always just tracking progress, essentially.
Sorry, I'm concentrating.
Oh, no problem. Concentrate away.
Yeah, I really have to take care of the layers. Otherwise, they're gonna be all over the place.
Yeah, it seems like it can get probably a little bit more tricky once you get into the facial features and all these smaller detailed shapes, keeping that clean and organized. So I saw that there was some animation in your portfolio. I was curious, like, how you originally got into that, what software you use for it and everything.
I haven't done so many yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning. I've done the two you can see with Photoshop, frame by frame. You should totally try. It's lots of fun.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that, but it's actually like a lot of fun. But yeah, I want to work with After Effects.
Oh, okay. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Just something you kind of jumped into just to try it, or do you have any background with it at all?
I just wanted to try, watch some tutorials, and yeah, did the two of them, which I liked. I did a few more, but didn't publish because I thought they weren't good enough. But yeah, I definitely want to get into After Effects. Like, I probably want to do that by next month or something, when I have a few more days to like really work on something for myself and get into it.
Yeah, that's definitely fun. I have never really messed around with animation much before, but I think there's a lot of really neat things I've seen people do with it, so that's very cool. Even how you can animate in Photoshop is pretty neat, because I think for people who do a lot of drawing and painting and stuff like that, we're familiar with that software. So when you can kind of make some stuff happen in that same software you're comfortable with, that's makes it a little bit easier, I think, to transition into different techniques and methods like After Effects.
Yes, I'm also super excited for that already.
Well, it's just really like satisfying to see an image you've created like given motion somehow, because it gives it like this sense of, oh, it's almost like alive now. I've done it very little, but I think it's, whenever you see a snippet of that, it's like super cool. It's very motivating.
I thought so too. When I did the one with the bike and the leg on the soil, I was like, oh yeah, makes so much sense. Now I'm like, I can transport a message so much easier now. Mm-hmm. Like with a few couple of movements. I mean, for the bike, it was just only like the street, the wheels, the tires, I mean, and the hair, kind of like. It's like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense. It's so great.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. If anyone wants to see it, if you go to her website, Danii, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Pollehn.com.
All right, it was perfect.
Thank you. You can see the animations there on the front page, and I see the one too with the hair blowing in the wind, and there's some leg movement with the figure on the blue background. I really like what you did with the hair. kind of like flowing animation effect. Looks really good.
Thank you.
I think there's just so many things I want to do, like animation, and just so many things I want to try. It's that feeling that there's never enough time. Like there's 100 things I want to try, and animation has always been like, it's so neat to add life to an illustration in that way.
That's so true. Time is so short and so limited all the time. There's so many things.
Yeah. I always say I don't think I'm ever going to be bored again. I don't think I've been bored since I was a kid, because like once I got into art, I'm like, all right, there's 500 things I want to try now.
That's so true.
Aside from like animation, is there any area you want to explore?
When it comes to drawing, or
just any sort of like kind of artistic area that you want to explore or try or dabble with that you haven't really yet?
I'd love to do murals.
Murals, yeah. I was going to ask you about that because I saw that mock-up. That is a mock-up, right?
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something I'd really love to do.
Have you ever done a mural before?
Not yet, but I'd love to try. I think it's probably really difficult, but I mean, who doesn't love a challenge?
Yeah. I think your art would work really well for murals. Like that mock-up would be so cool. Just looking at it, it fits so well.
Thanks so much. So nice of you.
I think just like those big shapes, the colors, everything, just yeah, that would work really nicely. I know we have some people who've streamed on here before, who've done murals. Alice Lee, she does the segments here called Doodle Therapy, and she's done a lot of murals. So it's been interesting because it's not an area I know anything about, but I've seen a little bit of her showing off like how they do it and the process and everything. It's really interesting. Seems like it would be a lot of fun.
Yes, I would love to do that. Thinking about like in summer, probably we have in each city, I think there's walls you can like just paint on. They're free to paint on.
Oh, wow.
Probably would love to try this summer, depending on how the weather is. In Hamburg, it's often pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of rain all the time.
I can see rain making that difficult for sure. But that's really cool if you have an opportunity where there's walls that you're just able to do that on. That'd be a really good way to try it out. I believe the artist spotlight that we're doing today, I believe they actually have done some murals too. So that'll be interesting to check out.
Yes, so excited for that.
Ferry says, when I do Illustrator, I feel overwhelmed and scared. But at that time, I remember that it was overwhelming when I did Photoshop for the very first time too. Yeah, for sure. I think anytime you try new software, it is a bit overwhelming, but I always try to give myself like a week where I don't create anything cool in it. Cause whenever I jump into new software, I'm like, oh, okay, I know what I want to make. I want to make this cool picture. And then I'm like, wait, I don't know the tools yet. And then I get frustrated. But if you just give yourself like a week to learn the UI, the basic tools, I think it becomes a lot easier just to kind of ease into it.
Definitely. You have to put in the time, and then don't be too hard on yourself and just try lots and lots of things. And after a while, I think most stuff is like it's, especially with like Photoshop and Illustrator, it's like so intuitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is a really nice thing about Adobe software. Like if you've used Photoshop, I think jumping into Illustrator for the first time, there's a lot of things that are familiar, and the layout and everything kind of makes sense in the same way. So I think anything's kind of intimidating when you do it for the first time, but there's just that little period where you just got to get familiar with it. Oh, Rebecca says I did a relatively small mural once, 9 by 12, using an old-fashioned overhead projector. Oh, okay.
Ah,
She says it was physically exhausting. I can imagine murals would be pretty tiring.
Yeah. Like going up the ladder and then like
Yeah, like whole arm leaning around.
then being outside and probably the sun is there and you have to like make sure that you're not dehydrating and taking breaks in between and really like yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
probably
Just
very exhausting, but yeah, seeing your artwork on a wall, I think that must be a super great thing.
yeah, for sure. I think even for me as a digital artist, seeing things printed is really neat. I think we talked a little bit about that yesterday, but seeing it not just printed, but you know, so many feet on a giant wall would be, I think, definitely something that would be pretty satisfying, pretty interesting to see. It's
Is there
funny, even
anything? Yeah, excuse
oh,
me.
so I was just gonna say it's funny because even just traditional painting, like on a canvas, um, is noticeably like more physically demanding to me than painting digitally. And it's like such a small change, but I can, only imagine that doing it on a giant wall would be exhausting.
Is there anything you would love to try in the future?
Um, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think there's just so many things. It's like a matter of prioritizing it for me. Cause I've wanted to play around with sculpture and stuff more like that. I've wanted to try animating my paintings a little bit more and things like After Effects. I've seen some really neat effects where digital paintings and digital illustrations are animated in a few different ways. If anyone's familiar with the video game League of Legends, they're splash screens that feature each character. They do a lot of animations for those. And I think just seeing like an illustration with some character come to life with a little bit of movement and like if it's an environment, maybe it's a desert, there might be like blowing sand or something like that. I think that stuff has always been really interesting to me. So in terms of animation, I would like to try getting into that more at some point. I even kind of want to mess around with making a simple game with my art. So there's like a lot of avenues I want to explore, but sometimes I just have to like step back and be like, all right, pick one, Sam, do
Yeah,
one step at a time, because there's always so much.
that's so true.
That's why I don't think I'll ever be bored. Always something to try. Always something I'm excited to experiment with. Yeah, Chris says Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. I can't imagine. Yeah, because the brush is upside down. Yep. Can't have too much paint. It's gonna be dripping everywhere.
Yeah.
I also think for murals, it would be really great just to be able to, I think the modern process for most people is do the piece digitally, and then I'm not sure if they usually use projectors. I think there's some sort of method where you do project it onto the wall, and you can kind of trace the line art and figure out what colors you need ahead of time because they're all in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever software you used. I think that's a cool process. That whole digital to mural transition would be really fun.
I think so too. I think there's also a tracing paper you have.
Oh, okay.
Or you can also work with squares, like put a grid and then like do square by square.
Yeah, the grid
To
system.
scale it up to like.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's an artist on Twitch. They do their drawings on a slate. Interesting. Yeah, it's really cool. Since live streaming I've been pretty big with live streaming for the past few years, but it's allowed me to discover a lot of different artists and a lot of different crafts and everything. There's been a lot of stuff I haven't seen before, so it's really neat to kind of be opened up to so many different styles and works. Have you ever live streamed on your own?
No, I have not. I think I'm a little bit too shy for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't know what to tell. But when did you start live streaming?
Oh, I started it like 5-6 years ago or something. It's been a while. I think it was 2015. I got into it, but I think it definitely is nerve-wracking in the beginning. I think a lot of people feel that way, and I think we all have that feeling where you don't want to start a drawing or something, and then it starts not going the way you want, and then you get nervous and you're like, this is looking really bad and I don't know why, and people are watching me. But I think I got over that. Once you start doing it regularly, I think you just stop caring too much. Like, people are going to see it when it's bad, people are going to see when it's good, but it helps me focus, at least helps
It's
me
also the
concentrate.
progress, right?
What's that?
It's also the progress, right? Everybody produces work that might not be the most beautiful in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
And
I have days where it's just not happening for me.
yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, it's nice for a sense of community. Honestly, I think that's why I did it the most. Which makes me curious, is there any, I don't know, is there any kind of thing you do, since you work freelance completely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you feel like, I don't know, I guess I don't know how to word it. Is there anything you do to kind of balance it out a little bit with working by yourself all the time? Or do you have any sort of like online communities or groups that you're a part of to kind of get the social aspect all, or has that not really been an issue?
In the beginning, I felt like very, very lonely. I was not having such a great time. I was like, where are my colleagues? I need to talk to somebody. Or
Yeah.
so nice to have a coffee break, like just a 5-minute break, like discuss things over, or if I have a question, or sometimes it's just so nice to like show your work and then ask for feedback. And that was completely gone when I started freelancing. Yeah, but then I had an office room for a while, which was super nice, with another illustrator. That was beautiful, but then there was the pandemic and it got a bit difficult to go to the office. So we terminated the contract because, well, yeah, it was just not worth it, because nobody knew when it's gonna like stop and if it's gonna go back to normal. So yeah, but now I actually I'm in a collective, and we have meetups quite often.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we meet on Zoom with like a couple of people. Sometimes there's just 5, sometimes there's 12, sometimes there's like a lot, and there's like groups where we can talk and ask all the questions, and yeah, it's such a lovely experience.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
creative women also, so it's nice.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot of things you could potentially do, like the co-working spaces you were talking about. That seems like a really nice way to kind of mimic that sort of feeling that maybe you get in an office or got in art school, where you're around other people. I think it's important to have that contact to some degree, because I think it'd be tough for me if I didn't have any outlet like that, just working by myself all day, every day. I think it's a bit tiring. So an online community or group you can meet up with, I think, is really great.
I think so too. The funniest thing, that in the beginning, I was like, yeah, I'm such an introvert. It's going to be so great. I'm just going to be on my own. It's not going to be so stressful. Like 3 months in, I was like, oh, I really like people.
Yeah.
I really miss people. Where are they? I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because I think I'm largely an introvert, but yeah, you need that connection, I think, sometimes, or at least, like you said, like just a coffee break or something with someone, is a little bit of socialization helps.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
But I think for me, it's just, yeah, it's been the streaming. I kind of get that through. So a lot of times it's just me monologuing to the camera, even though, everyone else just chats, but it's still a little bit of that socialization feeling to kind of keep me going.
Yeah, probably I should try it too, I guess. I mean, I'm drawing every day, so it would be easy to just like also do it. But yeah, I don't know. I can't even talk on my Instagram stories. I just can't do it.
Like
I did
while
it
you're working, or just in general, like the feeling
just
of presenting?
in general. I tried it once and I felt so, I don't know, just like super weird about it.
The influencer type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was more the monologue of things, like not really knowing who to talk to, and then not having somebody to talk to instead of. I also really don't know, because lots of people are sending voice messages through their phone, and this I also don't do, because it's like I want to talk to the person actually and just not have the monologue with my phone and send it over. The idea is kind of like, yeah, I can understand that it's much easier and makes so much sense, especially when you're busy, or you're in the grocery store, or you're like being busy with something else, and then you don't have the time to type it in. That I totally get, but I don't know. I really like to talk to people.
No, I totally see what you're saying. I think sometimes talking to a camera is just kind of a weird experience. Like there's a bit of a disconnect there.
What is the chat saying? Do they have an opinion about that? I'd love to know.
Yeah, has anyone kind of had experience with that, working from home, and how you get your, I guess, socialization or sense of community? I mean, I think there's so many options now. There's so many online art communities, just social media. I know an art group that I've been part of before has a Google Hangouts group where you can just join whenever, and there's usually someone working that day, so there's usually someone to chat with. I think something like that to sort of mimic that art school or studio experience, I think that can be really helpful. But if anyone in chat has any experience with that or what works for them well, definitely let us know. Norris says it's not compulsory to talk a lot in live streams. I find it relaxing to watch an artist creating, painting, and drawing. That's true. Yeah, because I think with live streams, there's so much variety, so many ways you can approach it, and sometimes it's just kind of a chill hangout session where there's music playing and the artist is working, and maybe people are chatting a little bit here and there, but not necessarily. And I guess on the topic, Behance and these live streams are probably another way people do it, because I know a lot of people who watch these live streams are freelancers or students, and it's kind of an outlet right there.
I watch them too, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone on the screen, I think, working alongside you.
Yeah, and I really enjoy the conversations, and there's always something to learn, and I learned shortcuts, and I heard about Adobe Capture, for example.
Yeah.
It gives so much value, and everyone has like so many experiences in different fields, and yeah, we can only just gain from that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good way to get out of sometimes I feel like the websites that go on, they do kind of the same art as I do, and it's very similar content, but I think live streams are a really good way to kind of discover new things, new artists, new styles, new techniques. Umacorn says I never use my voice in combination with video. It's funny, as much as I've streamed before, as many times as I do it, I still don't really watch my own live streams, and it's still like hearing my own voice is weird. I know that's a thing for most people, but even with how long I've been doing it, it's still strange.
I think it would be the same for me. Well, I added a few more, like, more saturated colors because I felt like it's a bit too, like, dreamy.
Oh, okay.
At least a little bit.
Do you know ahead of time what color you're going to be doing for the background?
No.
No.
I think it's good for now, but yeah, it's gonna change so much. Like, and by the end, I'm gonna like start and checking everything out again. And look, like here, I can see it when I put it to dark, like the green is not coming out as good. Or like, that could be nice when all the elements are there. So because then they will be like popping out a lot. But for now, I would still go with the brightest pink.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat to see this color palette being applied to a completely different image. Kind of seeing how it takes on similar qualities.
Ooh. And it happened. Somewhere I have something. No. Oh no. I think it might be an arrow.
Robert says working via computer with team meetings is the closest that they're coming to live streaming. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how the past year or so has kind of changed things. I'm curious to see what's going to be going on in the future, but so many teams, that worked in an office before, a studio or something like that, it seems like a lot of people are potentially shifting to more like working remotely or working from home. It's kind of an interesting thing to see how that might change the dynamics if it's just going to go back to the way it was, or if working from home is going to be a lot more common for everyone, not just freelancers.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the future looks as well. Like sometimes I'm so sad that I might not be able to see flying cars and these kind of things.
Have you worked in a studio environment before?
Studio? No, not really.
I do like the social aspect of working, like in-house at a studio or something like that. Just being able to communicate with other people, and that social aspect is nice. But there's definitely a lot of benefits working from home. And I think if I had to choose, working from home is definitely preferable. Commuting is not something that I'm a fan of.
But when I'm super honest, I have to admit that I would love to have a studio again when everything is like kind of normal again, where I could, which is easy reachable for me, and where I could probably go with my bike. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Like a 10-minute bike ride or like 15, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think something close like that would be really nice.
Yeah, I think it makes such a difference to get up in the morning and to leave your house, to like mentally and physically like separate yourself from your home and like have some fresh air and get some movement. And
yeah, actually going outside is something that I can easily forget to do working from home.
Yeah,
it's like I should probably step out into the sun for a little bit at least.
Yeah, at least a little bit. Yeah, I have trouble with that too, because I'm always working and there is so much to do, and I'm like, oh, I have to do this and this and that, and that's also still there, and then it's dark already, and then I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I missed it. The day is over.
I mean, also going back to what you said about just the separation of work and home, I think is probably potentially the biggest downside for working from home, or at least it has been for me. I'm not sure about you, but just that clear separation of like, okay, this is the office and this is home. And once you kind of mix the two, I feel like I've had to set up boundaries for myself in the past. I guess I've gotten better at it and more used to it, but having a divider between the two, I think is pretty healthy. Um, is there a way that you've done that, or any way that you try to separate them completely, or is it just kind of a free flowing thing for you?
I tried to separate with the office because I have to say that we live in a loft, one room apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can see my bed and I can see my kitchen and it's all there. I never can, there is no door I can close to like get some privacy or like to get into the flow or like, I don't know. Sometimes it's difficult. I think I manage really well and it's all great, but yeah, it was nice to have the office. Definitely. It really helped like to also separate myself from my computer and really like take a break on the weekends and don't pack any orders on Sundays and these kind of things, because usually I would check my emails and like, oh yeah, I can just start already. It's here, so why not? And when I had the office, I was just like, I can't do it now. I'll do it on Monday.
Yeah, kind of sets up boundaries a little bit more naturally.
Yeah, definitely helps.
Robert says, Sam, this is one of the problems to work from home. Yeah, you hear a lot of times people, I mean, there's like benefits to each. I think the biggest downside to me from working at a studio is potentially the commute. I also live in LA, so the likelihood of a bad commute, kind of goes up. Um, but then I think the biggest downside of working from home would be that work life separation and trying to strike a balance, because it can be tricky. But I think for me, it's been like setting a time where I'm done with work, unless I really have to get something in, or there's something I'm really behind on and it's pretty urgent. But typically I try to cut off the workday at 6:30, and then kind of go out, and I have a room where I have my computer and everything. So it's pretty much an office space. So that having that physical separation is really nice too.
Yeah.
Boundaries are important, says Viola. Yeah, for sure.
That is so true.
Cody says, I can relate to that, Danii. I struggle with setting work boundaries for myself working from home. I always feel the need to reply to an email immediately, even if it's the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a balance for me. Like sometimes if I can knock an email out really quick, I'll do that on the weekends, but I do try to keep weekends for myself as much as I can. And I try to call it after 6:30 if I can. So setting up like that almost sort of studio structure that you would have if you worked at an office, I try to do that a bit. I think it helps. Also, just to let everyone know, we'll be doing the artist spotlight in about 20 minutes or so, where we're going to be highlighting an artist from the community. Also, a reminder that we have the daily creative challenges going on this week. Today was the first challenge for Photoshop, and we're going to be doing the first challenges for Illustrator after this stream and XD after that. So definitely check those out if you're interested in joining. There's a community Discord you can join to share your designs, get feedback, give feedback, and everything like that. So if you're interested in doing some challenges, definitely check those out.
So I'm trying to get a few details done at least. Oh.
Do you feel like you have a favorite color, or even like a favorite color combination that you find yourself using a lot?
Purple recently. Apparently, when I look at my work, it's always purple, red, and orange, and a little
Okay.
bit of green. Yeah, which is so weird because I never liked purple, but I
Hmm.
guess I do now.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes you don't even notice. You're like, oh, okay, I use this color combination pretty often, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
It can be nice though, like a lot of times that, sort of unifies your work. You notice, oh, I use a lot of these tones, even if it's just like saturated tones versus more neutral tones. A lot of times that can create a lot of consistency between work, which can be nice.
That's true.
Nor has a question. They say, do you also do some animation with your artworks? I'm imagining a lot of possibilities with all the elements in the illustration you're doing, like making the eyes blink, etc.
Yes, I started doing that and would definitely work on discovering Adobe After Effects, because that's exactly what I also want to do. Like have some movement in the background, have her blink, have her probably move the grapefruit, and like maybe even throw it from hand to hand or something. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I definitely have ideas for that. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, so far I haven't been doing much of it. But when I have the time, I'm definitely starting the process.
So do you think you might actually do some kind of complex traditional animation in that way where you draw different frames of that illustration doing a movement?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that'd be really fun to experiment
Yeah.
with. I think it would be pretty doable with this this sort of illustration as well, because a lot of these shapes are, fairly large, fairly simplified, that creating multiple frames for them I don't think would be too time consuming.
I think so too. I think it would work really well, actually.
And Nor, if you've seen Danii's website, I was mentioning that earlier, she does have a little bit of animation on there. So it was something she was saying she's kind of interested in exploring further. So definitely check those pieces out.
Yeah, and I definitely also think that it's going there in the future a lot.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see. I'll have to keep an eye out on your website in the future to see if there's
Yeah,
more animation that pops up.
there will be. And I also feel like in the illustration industry, it's like such an important thing to be able to do. Like for now, there's quite a few people who only animate, and illustrators are not yet, they don't have to do it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely going there. It's so important and everybody is asking for it. So yeah, I definitely should get going
Yeah.
to not miss the momentum
Yeah,
completely.
I think that'd be really neat. Like if you see someone who, does a lot of illustration work, but also incorporates that sort of motion graphic element into it, which, like I said, I think that would work really well with this style and these shapes and everything. So that would be really cool to see. And there's so many types of animation too. Like I was talking about those digital paintings I've seen animated, but I don't know if you've ever seen some. I've seen a bit of this in After Effects, other software as well, but it's essentially where it kind of makes the illustration look three-dimensional. Like I don't know if it's not using AI, but taking some elements of a flat picture and it kind of like warps it to give it a bit of dimension, like the face is turning slightly, kind of doing like these motions. Have you seen anything like that?
Not yet.
Mm. I've seen it a few times with animators who do it with digital paintings. I think I've seen some social media type of AI driven apps. I think there's something like that I've seen recently too. So it'll be kind of cool to see how technology and tools like that, further animation or at least allow more possibilities. So I'm always kind of intrigued by those things, but I have yet to dabble in them.
Me too.
Ferry's asking, am I talking about the presets? Do you mean for the animations that I was talking about, Ferry? I'm mostly talking about some software I've seen that essentially is used for animating 2D drawings for mobile games is often what it's used for, but it just kind of gives you some flexibility to rig up a 2D character and animate them with little like skeleton aspects and this mesh aspect that can kind of give 2D pictures a 3D look. It's almost like what you can do in Photoshop. If you've ever used the warp tool, you can kind of select like the center of a face and warp it to the side slightly, and it almost gives it like a turning look. It's software that kind of does that in a little bit more of a complex way, but not presets specifically now.
So excited to hear all of that.
Yeah, Chris is saying 2.5D parallax effect. That's another thing too. If anyone's ever done that, where you kind of separate the layers of your illustration in something like, I think After Effects is good for this, and you put them on different planes, and you can kind of rotate the camera slightly to give it some depth, where the background, the midground, and the foreground moves at different rates. So there's so many things you can potentially play with animation. I think it's a really exciting area.
Yeah, I'm trying again with the colors. What would actually look? Trying to get her a bit more to pop out.
Yeah, a little bit more contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I have to add something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great how easy you can do these big sections of color change really quickly and easily, just to see what works.
Yeah, maybe keep it at that, like this for now.
Chris is saying After Effects, Animate, CC, etc. for that parallax effect. Yeah, that is one of the ones I played around with, Chris, was parallax effect for some of my characters that I did. And I think once you start playing with animation a little bit, it does get sort of addictive, because I was like, oh man, I want to try all these different ways to animate and learn a little bit more of After Effects. And it's definitely a rabbit hole, I think, that's easy to go down. Also, hello, Richard. Welcome on in. Jessica asks, did you create the piece that you're using for color reference?
Yes.
And you said that was traditional, right?
I painted it in gouache.
So Danii, I have a question. If
Yes,
you could
please.
go back when you were first kind of getting started and give your past self some advice, is there anything that you would say or emphasize that kind of stands out as something you wish you knew, or advice you wish you had gotten?
Probably something like, don't hold back and just keep on believing in yourself, and please believe how can I say that? I don't know how to say that in English, to be honest, but most of the time you have a feeling for something, if it's good or bad. And I think in the past I never not that I never listen to it, but usually I'm feeling the right thing. You know what I mean? And I should listen to my own feelings and stuff more.
Yeah. Kind of like issues with self-doubt. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Always feeling like that somebody else probably knows better, or like you don't trust your own instincts so much. But
oh yeah,
I think we all should do more of that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a process of self-discovery. I think art and that whole field, like finding what you want to create, what you like, and just the whole aspect of growth that's involved in it is really a kind of a personal experience.
Yeah. What is it for you? What you would tell your younger self?
It's funny because it's like kind of a reoccurring joke almost on my theme or on my streams, where I say zooming out pretty much solves all my problems that I typically have. So staying zoomed out for a painting, even if it's like a really detailed one, just staying zoomed out the entire time and getting all the big shapes and colors. But I think that kind of goes along with maybe the advice I would actually give, which is about perfectionism. That's always been an issue for me, at least specifically, where I think I get too caught up in something being perfect and not just using it as a learning experience where I'm just kind of trying things out, experimenting, having fun, but just overthinking it, overcomplicating it. It's really just about, I think, doing a lot of work, experimenting and trying a lot of new things. And I think when I get caught up in, spending way too long on something, it kind of deprives me from these times where I could maybe try something else or experiment with this other idea. And I don't know, I think there's a point of diminishing returns when you spend on a piece and you're detailing tiny things. It's like sometimes when you get to a certain point, you can spend 2 hours on like a face and you don't really notice a huge difference because it's just tiny details. So I think not getting caught up in that stuff maybe so much.
Yeah, that's good advice, I think.
Jessica asks, who are some other creatives that Danii admires? I think you mentioned a couple artists yesterday, right?
Yeah, definitely. It was Aurelia Durand for her unapologetically use of color. Love that. And yeah, I think her work is beautiful because it's very dynamic and also energetic. And there is Petra Eriksson. And yeah, well, then I have a couple of friends who I also admire a lot, like Lisa Tickmeyer or Karina Lindmeyer. I would say you can check them out. I think they inspire me on a daily basis as well because, like, of course, we talk to each other and we're kind of like in the same position. And yeah, especially with Karina, I know what she's going through and like we inspire each other. So
oh, that's great to have that sort of kind of connection or relationship with people where you can feel like you can kind of lean on them for advice or inspiration. People who are in a similar place, I think, is always really helpful.
do you have artists that you love a lot and inspire you a lot?
Oh man, too many.
Yeah, it is quite difficult to narrow it down, right?
Yeah.
There's just so many beautiful artists and they create so much beautiful work. I'm inspired on a daily basis, like so badly. Like every day I open up all the apps and Behance. I mean, Behance is incredible. I open it up and like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is the best idea. I wish I would have had the idea, but no, I didn't.
I've had that too, where it's like, oh man, I wish I thought of that. I mean, it changes for me too, because it's like, I feel like each month I'm focused on something else. There's something about art or illustration that's capturing my imagination and my attention and my interest. We were talking about animation. That could even be it. Maybe one month I'm really into the idea of learning to animate my paintings. So I'll be focusing on all these artists who do that really well, and I'll be inspired by them. But sometimes I'm really into composition and trying to learn more about it. And, I feel like if I got better composition, it would elevate my own work so much, or maybe it's lighting or texture, edges. And I feel like I always kind of latch on to different artists who do that thing really well. So I think it's always changing depending on my own interests, but I definitely have some artists that I would probably put in my, top handful, but it's just so many of them. I think that's good though. I know people have said before, like on the topic of drawing inspiration from artists rather than copying, it maybe is really mostly an issue if you're always drawing influence or inspiration from one specific artist. Like if you find yourself trying to basically become this other artist. But I think when you're drawing inspiration from all sorts of things, maybe you love this person's lighting, this person's proportions, this person's texture, and then you're finding things outside of artists that inspire you as well. I think that's kind of a lot of times what maybe culminates in someone's style. It's all those things that you like rolled into one.
That's true. I also like to have as many inspiration sources as possible. And I really take care of not being too inspired by anybody in specific.
Yeah.
Like, especially because, like, as an artist, I also want to, like, show my own thing and don't copy anybody else. Like, because, I mean, there is this saying, like, be yourself because everybody else is already taken. I think.
Yeah, it's a good saying. I think that's pretty common in the beginning, right? Like trying to mimic other artists. And I think I've heard a saying that's also, you have to sound like a lot of different people before you find your own voice, which I think it is part of that learning process to kind of learn from others. But at a certain point, you do have to kind of ask, like, what do I want my art to be? And what do I want my voice to sound like?
That's so true. And I feel like it also makes sense to start that process quite early, to be honest, to don't get caught up in all the other stuff and to separate yourself from that, like, early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you're developing something, it sometimes feels so difficult to, like, lose it again, because I worked as a textile designer, so you always work in briefs. So you get a brief and then it's not like really necessary that you have your own style. Like you can have one, but it's also very important that you can do whatever style there is. And yeah, I felt like it was super difficult for me to, like, get independent again and to really listen to what I want to do, because for years I was caught up creating work for a brief that always had to look a certain way, and then, like, to find your own voice, it was such, like, not really difficult, but it took quite some time to, like, find the courage to actually explore and don't fall back again into old habits.
Yeah, definitely. I think that can be a pretty lengthy process of discovery for a lot of people. And honestly, I feel like I'm still, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think we're all never stopping to figure it out, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Also, a quick reminder to anyone who's watching over on YouTube, if you want to join the main chat and see any links or chat that's we're reading over here, it's on behance.net/live. So if you're wondering why we're not seeing your comments or anything, that's why. And also, whenever you're ready to kind of get to a stopping point, it looks like it is time for the artist spotlight. So we're going to be reviewing an artist from the community, checking out their work and showing it to you all.
Right now? Yes.
If this is a good point for you.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, we can switch over to that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, here we are. So this is the artist spotlight, and this is Love is Wise. And I think right off the bat, you can see their work here is just very colorful, stands out, really eye-catching, really extensive Behance portfolio here as well. I'm just going to scroll through and then we'll check out some individual ones, but you can kind of get a feel for their work.
Really
I think
love all the colors.
Yeah, I think a lot like your work, the kind of bold shapes and bold colors really stand out. All right, so here's the first piece. I think this might be a New York Times. I'm not sure if that's NYT at home cover, but here's a cover piece, cover illustration. Seeing if there's a little description or anything. I love the texture on this. It's kind of bold colors combination with the kind of almost like watercolor-like texture, I think is really neat. Yeah, that's great. A lot of use of texture here, especially like these border shapes, the hair. I think that all works really well. I like the kind of stylization of the faces too. They have a lot of personality. So here's a few different pieces here, all kind of figurative. I like how the shapes on this are really, I mean, it's a figurative design, but you're really getting this sort of big graphic shapes with these diagonals and everything. So it's almost kind of this melding between graphic design and figurative art, which I think is really neat. And I like how all these things, they have a nice, what is the word I'm looking for? Cohesive, unified feeling together with the color palettes and the saturation, everything. So these all fit together really nicely. Okay, so this one I checked out before. I think Love is Wise actually did a segment, an animated segment for the Juneteenth Google Doodle is what this is labeled. So a lot of times on the homepage of Google, I think this might have been used for Juneteenth. So it's a little long, so I'll play a little bit of it. But we were talking about animation before, so seeing this animated is really neat. I just think the idea of how you can bring, this sort of life and story and movement to a traditional illustration is really cool to see. I'd be curious to see what Love is Wise did for, if this was all their animation or how it was set up, the whole process behind this, behind giving an illustration movement would be really interesting to see. Yeah, that's really cool. Check out another one here. Oh, I think this is actually a mural piece. So we were talking about murals before too. Here it is in context, kind of in the environment. Yeah, those colors work really well. There they are painting it.
I think it's beautiful. The way they chose color is just incredible. I'm so inspired by that. Like, it's so powerful and bold and strong.
Yeah. Yeah, it works really well.
Really well with the environment. I think the greenhouse and then with all the pink accents, it's like super nice.
Yeah, it's such an eye-catching piece with all those colors relative to the environment.
Yeah, and I also think they have a great message all the time. Like from what I saw, it's just beautiful work. And you mentioned the textures, and I really love that too.
Hmm.
Like the way the amount of details is just incredible and makes it like so organic looking. And I really love the faces and the way everything is drawn. And there's a flower, and so like it's just beautiful. Love the handwriting here. It makes it so personal.
Mm. Yeah, I just love the kind of stylization of the proportions too, like the heads and just the way they use shape works really well.
Mm. It looks very organic, and the clothes have pattern, and it's like so imaginable, like so much detail and so much like there's so much to look at
Yeah,
and to
definitely.
discover within. Also love that one.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they've really nailed down their style and feel for their work. Like it's very identifiable as them.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting
Wow,
to see, like a kind of mock-up of the print on fabric.
nice.
It's interesting too when I was looking at their portfolio. I feel like you can almost see a little bit of an evolution of their style, like when we look at this top section here of
Yeah.
all the work, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, it feels a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of
Yeah, I can
towards the
already
center.
see that she's getting more that they are getting more confident with color.
Hmm. Yeah, it's always really interesting to see that evolution of someone's style. Yeah, I love the shapes and the proportions here. Very cool.
Yeah. Also love the pattern on the blouse or sweater.
Hmm.
And there's another one on the vase, and yeah, the use of color is just amazing. I also love the transparency in the pants. Or the
Yeah,
little detail in the wall hanging, the eye.
yeah. I do like that little accent of yellow right above the eye there. Kind of draw the
Mm-hmm.
focus. Yeah, great textures. Let's see, this is the next one. We'll check out a couple more of these and then jump back into Danii's illustration before we have to call it. The use of color here is really, really interesting. Strong contrast between these, kind of almost like a back and forth zigzag between the cools and
Yes.
warms.
And I love the overlapping layers, the multiply overlapping layers, that it creates a new
Mm.
color where it's like multiplying.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And I think that works well with the sort of theme of the illustration as well.
Yeah.
The combination.
That's one of the ideas I would say, like, why didn't I have that? It's like beautifully done.
Yeah, it works really well.
Like, love the movement here.
Yeah, it's sort of circular composition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like how they play with the figures, you know, just being really free with the shapes to kind of create whatever flow or movement or shapes that they need. And so this one says New Yorker, so this looks like a magazine
Yeah.
cover design. Very cool. Like the masking that they did there behind with the text.
Yeah.
I'm gonna zoom in on this one a bit. Oh
I
man,
also
yeah.
love the composition again. It's like so on point and perfect. I just love it. Like
Yeah.
the floor, the patterns, and then the patterns also again on the wallpaper, and it's all mixed together, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I really love this color and texture behind the figures here. I feel like the color contrast and the sort of the busyness of it really makes the figure pop out and contrast really well with like the big, less textured sections. Yeah, this is great. Background pattern is great too.
Mm-hmm. And it's so really, it's art to be able to mix so many patterns. If somebody is able to do that, that's
Yeah.
like such a skill, like amazing work.
Yeah, there's a really nice balance with it, and that can definitely be tricky. Yeah, so it looks like this might be another
Google.
piece of work they did for Google with the banner. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Really great contrast to the figures against the background colors and patterns.
I also love that throughout the work there is so many different color palettes, but it still looks so cohesive. Like
Yeah.
I could see it like from a mile away, and I would still know who the artist is.
Yeah, it's very true. They have a very consistent look throughout all their work, just in terms of, I mean, just looking at this, and I think that's something that's really neat to see is when you see certain people's Instagram galleries or their Behance galleries, anything like that, you can kind of see if there's a certain level of consistency, like if they've nailed down a style or a look. Like it looks very professional. It looks like it all fits together. If you're hiring them for work, it's like you know what they do, you know what they're about, and you know what they do well and what you can expect from them. So I think that's great. So this one has a little bit more graphic design in it. So that's kind of cool to see how you can fit illustration into a sort of graphic template here with text and everything. I really like this one.
Yes, the dog. So
Oh
cute.
yeah.
With the headphones on.
With the headphones, yeah. It's a nice touch. There's so much like personality in these too, which I think is really cool. Like so many little touches like that, or just the patterns on her coat here. It like adds a lot of, you know, believability and life to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's great. All right, we'll check out one more. I think we can jump back. This is really interesting. This is almost like it's still very consistent with their other work, but a little bit, I feel like there's a little bit different stylistically. Yeah.
Yeah, but still like super cool. I love all the details. I can't stop looking at it.
Yeah. Again, like the character here, so much personality, even though it's like you don't see their face, you still get like a really strong sense of a character in that design.
I think the person is even writing something in a book or something,
Mm-hmm.
or doing some sketches.
Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, so in love.
Again, if anyone's just coming in and checking this out, you can check out Love is Wise. It's behance.net/loveis-illustrates. You can check out all their work here. Really great stuff. All right, so I think we can jump into your illustration again, and we'll have a little 5 minutes or so, a little bit over that before we get a jump off. So whatever final touches you want to make.
Mm-hmm. So that was amazing.
Yeah. Cody Bear says the texture is so nice. Yeah, the textures add a lot of personality.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any final questions for Danii before we go, definitely put them in the chat and we'll check them out. It's just going to be one moment, everyone. We're just fixing the screen share here. Go back to here for a moment.
Oh.
All right, we're back.
Yay! I think my iPad also fell in love with the illustrations.
So when you work in Illustrator or Fresco or any of the software you use to create your illustrations, do you feel like there's a favorite tool that you might have, something that you lean on a lot or go back to or find really useful?
Within the program, or?
Yeah, within the software, if there's something you use frequently or find quite helpful.
For Adobe Illustrator on the iPad, it's definitely these kind of pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And also the second, I really love that one for having a bit more movement within the brush, which I used for the eyes here, for example.
Oh,
Like
okay.
to have it a bit more uneven to make it look more natural. I think that will be my favorite tool.
Which tool is that?
For me, it's called pencil. Probably, yeah. Should be
Okay.
pencil.
It kind of gives the line a bit of weight variation.
Mm-hmm. Buntstift is it in German? So
yeah, it's nice to have that. Have you played around? I don't know if we talked about this yesterday, but have you played around with the vector brushes in Fresco at all?
yes, all the time actually. I love them a lot. This is my base usually. I use it to have the base, and then using clipping mask and adding some texture with the pixel brushes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Makes total sense to me. And it's so good because you can also like get out a PDF from Adobe Fresco, and then you will be able to put it into Adobe Illustrator and you can use the layers. It's perfect workflow.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a process like that where you can kind of flow from one stage to the other pretty seamlessly and easily. I've played around with the vector brushes in Fresco too, and I don't do vector work typically. It's all like pixel based, but it is really cool to kind of have the vector brushes where you can get that freehand flow, that, kind of organic feel, just hand drawing something, but also get those vectored edges and shapes. It's a lot of fun to play with.
I think so too. And it really also helped me to define my style, which it is now a lot.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Before I worked a lot with watercolor brushes, but since I discovered the vector brushes and like really got used to the workflow, it changed my style as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting when a certain tool or a brush or something like that can kind of influence the look of your work. I've certainly had that happen before with brushes that I use.
So I'm trying to present a little bit of like, you can check it out how it might look in the end. I have to finish it. It might take me another couple of hours, but at least you can see like how it could look.
Yeah, it was kind of like yesterday. As soon as you duplicated the background sections into all four corners, it really starts to come together.
Yeah.
I think coloring, though, it's definitely takes long with so many shapes and details.
Yeah, I definitely have to work on the entire details for the face still, and but you can like get the feeling.
Yeah, I like that depth that you're getting with the face, the two shapes, kind of the darker shape.
Yeah. I think it's coming together nicely. It will be super good in the end. And I think the palette is also perfect.
Yeah.
Probably gonna add some more orange. I have it here in the flower. but I think it goes really well, even though it's not in the initial palette.
Yeah, I like it. And I think it kind of mirrors the tones you see in the skin too, which gives it a nice balance. Also, if anyone missed the first stream that we did yesterday, where Danii started this whole piece and drew out all the line work and everything, you can check that out in the chat. Cody put that link there. Thanks, Cody. Once you duplicated some of those background shapes too with the colors, it's interesting because you can really start to see the color palette come together in the way that it was in the original painting that you're using as reference.
Yeah, it's just revealing itself in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening right now.
Are you coloring in the shapes on the shirt, or what part are you working on right now? Yeah.
I just put the layer under it and wasn't aware.
Oh, gotcha.
Video.
I really do like the how you change it from a pattern to this kind of shirt print, but both you kept the banana and the cactus. I like how sort of random it is. I think we need to get official banana cactus shirts for everyone in chat.
I think so too. For me, it makes total sense, to be honest.
Also, we got Andrew Hockrattle in the chat. Just a reminder to everyone, we do have more daily creative challenges coming up. Today is the first day of the challenges for Photoshop, XD, and Illustrator. So if anyone's interested in joining, it's the perfect time. We have challenge pages for all of them and community discords as well.
Whoops.
Hashtag banana cactus. The latest internet trend sweeping the nation. Jessica's asking if you're using Illustrator on the iPad. Yes.
Yes.
Yesterday was Fresco on the iPad. Today she's working in Illustrator on the iPad. Also, Danii, whenever you get to a good stopping point, it's probably a good time to wrap it up. And whenever you get there, just maybe, I guess, show people kind of a little recap of what they missed yesterday, what you've done today, kind of how far we've come in the past 2 streams.
So yesterday we did the sketch for this illustration in Adobe Fresco with the pencil brushes, the pixel brushes there. And today we started coloring, and yeah, unfortunately I didn't finish yet because there's quite a few elements we decided on yesterday. But yes, I'm going to do that in the next 2 days and post that on Instagram. If you're still interested in seeing the finished result, let's hop over and check it out. And yeah, we worked in Illustrator on the iPad and mainly used these pencil brushes to draw the items and elements, because I think it gives a really not such a stiff look, which you sometimes get, but there's some room for movement. And yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, we went so far in adding so many different shapes yesterday, so there's definitely a lot to color in, but I think it looks really cool. I love the background and how kind of energetic it seems. And that kind of brings us to the end of our stream here. Danii, if they do want to find your work online, where's the best place to follow you?
That will probably be Behance or Instagram. Behance is Danii Pollehn, and Instagram is the same. So yeah, you can find me there, message me there, I can follow back, or ask me anything you want to. I'm always there.
Sounds good. Well, this looks great. Thanks so much for joining us, Danii. It was really cool to see this whole process from the line drawing to the coloring today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today in the chat. Thanks so much for being here, chatting, asking questions, all that. It was great to see everyone. We got more content coming up next with the daily creative challenges. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Bye, everybody.